Am I the a-hole for ruining my own gender reveal party? I'm pregnant with a baby boy due in November. My fiancé and I didn't care much about the sex of our child, so we didn't make too much noise about it once we found out. The only people we'd informed were our parents, their partners and our siblings. Prior to this, my father's girlfriend of 3 years had been asking me about my plans for a gender reveal party. I've always been clear about not wanting one. When I announced my son's gender to them, she expressed disappointment that I hadn't changed my mind about a party. I don't like gender reveals. Never have. Never will. I prefer baby showers, which I think feel more about the actual child. I never tried to hide that opinion, either. Days later, my father's girlfriend invited me over for tea at their apartment. My dad was out of town. When I got there, about a dozen people popped out of hiding to surprise me. There were pink and blue decorations everywhere, which made what was going on pretty clear. As I stood there in shock, my father's girlfriend excitedly told me they were throwing me surprise gender reveal party. Since I'd already told her, she had taken it upon herself to order a cake with colorful frosting, decorate the apartment, and invite a bunch of people over. The guests included her mother, whom I don't get along with, some of her friends, my not my mom, and 4 of my friends. As I later found out, my and friends had been told I'd changed my mind about gender reveals. I had not. Still in the doorway, I looked over at everyone and said, "It's a boat. You guys can go home now." I left without looking back. Hours later, my father called me furious that I'd ruined the party. He said his girlfriend had put a lot of effort, money and love into planning it, and I should have shown respect and gratitude for it. Apparently, she hadn't stopped crying since I left. It's been almost a week, and they're both still upset. Even after I explained I never wanted that party in the first place, they're insisting I could have sucked it up for an hour, or at least cut the cake. Am I the a-hole for telling a parent that her autistic child shouldn't be at a sports camp? Throw away, because I'm probably the asshole on this. I, 20 female, have coached a sports camp over the summer for the last several years, my local elementary school. The camp covers all sorts of sports and games for kids in elementary school to let them try many different sports and see which ones might stick. This year, we've started an inclusion program for kids on the spectrum, where inclusion specialists work at our camp specifically to look after those kids and help them through the camp if they need it. I've really enjoyed this program, and nothing is better than watching a kid find a sport they enjoy or excel at. Fast forward to this week, the 3rd week we're holding the camp, and enter Connor and his mother Sarah, fake names of. Connor is 10, on the older side for this camp, and when we first met him in the morning, he seemed like a pretty good kid to work with at a camp. The problem was his mother. She pulled me aside before the day started to specifically tell me about what Connor needed. Turns out, Connor had pretty severe meltdowns, and what triggered them was losing. His mother asked me to make sure Connor never lost a game. This included his team never losing, letting him win all the races, making sure his team came first in the relays, never letting him get tagged in tag, and never letting him get eliminated in any sort of last man standing game. I told her on no uncertain terms that I couldn't control that, and that was unfair to the other kids if I told them to always let him win. She was not happy about this and told me that they were trying to avoid meltdowns this weekend, that he was working on it, but losing was still incredibly emotional for him. I told her that she really shouldn't have sent him to a sports camp if she thought it would put him in distress or force all the other kids to cater to him. She asked me what the hell the inclusion program was for, and I told her it meant I as a coach could help him, and his inclusion specialist could help him, but the other kids weren't a part of this inclusion program. She left very angry, but left Connor with us for the day, during which he had 2 meltdowns that the inclusion specialist dealt with, but I started feeling guilty. The whole point of the program was to allow kids like him to participate, but I didn't want to sacrifice the other kids' experience just for him. So, AITA. Edit. Thank you so much for your interactions, but here's a few quick details that I think got lost along the way. 1. This is not just a camp for neurodivergent kids. We brought a program in to integrate those kids in with the neurotypical kids. Over the past 3 weeks, there's been about a 10-to-1 ratio of neurotypical to neurodivergent. 2. This is a pretty small camp, 20 to 30 kids max, and my neighbor used to run this camp when I was in high school, but when I graduated he handed a lot of it over to me. He now runs the financial, location, marketing, and legal stuff while I organize most of the camp itself along with a few other coaches, 2 of whom are still in high school, 2 in college. There isn't really a supervisor or higher up I can hand the mother over to except for the inclusion specialist. Hope this helps. Edit to sorry. I don't hire the inclusion specialists, nor do I know exactly what they're qualified with, but they are working through a separate program outside our camp that we partnered with. They match the neurodivergent kids 1-to-1. And they are provided with all the information with the kids, including lists of trigger and what calms them down. They are all qualified adults, real adults, not college students and high schoolers like the coaches, and as far as I could tell they handled Connor's meltdowns with a lot of patience and expertise and got him back to playing with the other kids within a half hour or so after each inciting incident. When I originally told Sarah that the camp was likely not a good fit for Connor, I was more thinking about how the kid would be miserable in a cycle of meltdowns all day, and not about the qualifications of the inclusion program. Update. Thank you so much to everyone for your advice, comments, anecdotes, and support. I really appreciated it. Good news. Connor came back today, this time with his dad, who didn't offer any sort of complaints or comments about yesterday to me or the inclusion therapist. From the 2 days and now 5 meltdowns, all lasting under an hour each we've had with Connor, I believe either his mother underestimated his emotional regulation and ability to move on from losses, or the inclusion specialist was able to curb and limit his meltdowns better than she did at home. We tried to mitigate the situations where he would lose. For example, he didn't keep score during the large matches, but elimination games caused the meltdowns. For the record, he didn't melt down every time he was eliminated or tagged, and he really wanted to participate in those games with the other kids, which is why we didn't pull him from them. I also want to explain why I originally thought the camp wouldn't be a good space for Connor, and how I was proven wrong. I've always seen the camp as a place for kids to have fun and try new things, and I didn't consider its value as a space for learning to manage triggers and work through emotions since we just introduced this program this year. From the way Sarah described Connor's emotional state, I heard about a kid who would likely hate most parts of the camp we ran, and would be very unhappy for 7 hours a day for a week. While I understand the value of working through those upsetting emotions, the camp I run is meant to be fun, not stressful, or akin to a therapy session. I felt this way because I grew up with pretty severe anxiety related to school and I would have panic attacks before tests. So trying to imagine my parents sending me to a big test camp for some exposure therapy during my summer break sounded horrible. Ignoring any sort of disability, competitive sports don't mesh well with certain personalities. While they have always been a great outlet for me, I see kids all the time who really don't enjoy how competition makes them feel emotionally or physically, but are pushed into them by overbearing parents trying to relive their glory days. Ultimately, once I explained to Sarah that I wasn't going to rig the games, I understand now how saying he shouldn't be at the camp had the wrong connotation, but I wanted the kid to have fun, and I didn't want to place him in a position he couldn't do that. Ultimately, I was wrong, and even with the meltdowns he's had, I think the inclusion specialists are really helping him, and I still agree with most of you that Sarah was unreasonable. However, I also do stand by the fact that if Connor was as volatile and emotional when he lost as his mother made him seem, I don't think the camp would have been a good place for him. YET. Turns out, it was, and I'm glad Sarah left him with us. AITA for purposely dressing down to buy an expensive BMW? EDIT. Dressed in a t-shirt and shorts to buy an M4. Boomer salesman showed no interest and lied to me, so I complained to the manager about him. I was recently promoted to senior software engineer, so I figure I would treat myself to a BMW for competition. The idea of dressing like a hobo and buying a sports car always seemed so cool to me, as lame as it might be. I work from home and I was wearing basketball shorts, a baggy white t-shirt, and Crocs. At the door, my girlfriend realized what I was doing and scowled. She asked me to change, but I told her they'd be happy to take my money no matter what I wore. She just rolled her eyes but didn't say anything. At the dealership, there were only 3 salesmen on the floor. 2 were busy with customers and 1 was doing something on his computer. I wanted to ask if they had a test car with the carbon bucket seats option. I approached the boomer age guy on his computer. I asked if he had any AM model with bucket seats. He glanced up for like half a second and said, "What you see is what you get." Okay then. I found a demo car on the floor with bucket seats, I went back to the boomer and asked if I could take it for a test drive. He told me one of the other salesmen could help me out. Okay then. The other salesmen were still busy. I was frustrated but I obliged. I waited by his desk and 2 minutes later he told me they don't allow test drives of M cars. Which is bullshit because I had the option to book it online. I just didn't know if the test car would have bucket seats. I ended up waiting for one of the other salesmen. He was great. He let me test drive an M2 with bucket seats and I ordered the M4 through him. At some point, the general manager came out to greet me. I shared with him that I was disappointed from the customer service I got from Boomer salesman. The manager shot him a dirty glare and Boomer had a stern but concerned look on his face. On the way home, I was elated about my purchase, but I noticed my girlfriend wasn't as excited. I asked her what was up and she told me it was a dick move to bait Boomer salesman into giving me no attention then complaining to the manager about it. I honestly didn't intend to bait him or make him look bad. I just wanted to dress like a college student while buying an M4. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I still have no idea whether or not I'm the asshole. Also, I've never seen Pretty Woman.